Have you ever woken up from a dream so vivid, so strange, that the feeling of it lingered with you all day? That sense that something more was unfolding in your sleep, something meaningful, maybe even mystical. For thousands of years, people have looked to their dreams for guidance, for warnings, or for messages from beyond, but nowhere was this practice more profound, more intricately woven into daily life and spirituality than in ancient Egypt. The Egyptians didn't just see dreams as random images or worries from the day. They saw them as a direct line to the divine, a conversation with the gods, and even a glimpse into the journey of the soul. Think about that for a moment. An entire civilization built an entire system of understanding around what happens when we close our eyes at night. Imagine living in a world where dreams were taken so seriously that pharaohs employed professional interpreters to help guide their kingdoms, where dreams could predict the outcomes of battles, foretell the rise and fall of rulers, or reveal the will of deities like Thoth, the god of wisdom, or Isis, the great protector. This wasn't superstition, it was a sophisticated and deeply respected art, a blend of spirituality, psychology, and symbolism that feels astonishingly relevant even today. The ancient Egyptians left behind dream books, temple inscriptions, and texts that mapped out the hidden meanings behind common symbols: snakes, water, flying, falling, even dreaming of eating figs. Each symbol carried layers of meaning, offering insights into a person's health, relationships, and spiritual path. So what if I told you that you can still access this ancient wisdom, that the dreams you have tonight might be interpreted using the very same principles that guided people 4,000 years ago? In this video, we're going to journey back in time to uncover the secrets of Egyptian dream interpretation. We'll explore how they decoded messages from the subconscious, what their most powerful symbols meant, and how you can apply this age-old knowledge to better understand your own inner world. This isn't just about curiosity, it's about connecting to one of humanity's oldest traditions to find clarity, meaning, and maybe even a little magic in your own life. Stay with me, because what you're about to discover might just change how you see your dreams forever. To truly grasp the power of this practice, we need to step into the world of an ancient Egyptian. Picture yourself not as a modern person with a scientific understanding of brain chemistry, but as someone living in a universe deeply intertwined with the divine. In this world, the barrier between the earthly and the spiritual was thin and permeable, especially during sleep. When your body rested, your soul, your Ba, was thought to be able to travel and commune directly with gods and ancestors. A dream wasn't a random neural firing, it was a privileged audience with a deity, a prophetic vision, or sometimes a terrifying encounter with a chaotic spirit. This fundamental belief made every dream a potential communique of immense importance, a sacred text written in the language of symbols. This is where the professional dream interpreters came in, the highly revered scribes of the sacred. These were not mere fortune tellers, they were scholars and priests, meticulously trained in the complex art of oniromancy. They served as the translators for these divine messages, consulting extensive dream books, papyrus manuals that cataloged thousands of dream scenarios and their meanings. Imagine a scribe unrolling such a text, his finger tracing entries for dreaming of a large cat, a very good omen signifying a bountiful harvest, or a slow-moving river, a warning of stagnation in one's personal life. Their interpretations could bring immense relief or send ripples of anxiety through a household. Their counsel was sought by all levels of society. A farmer might consult them after a troubling dream about a withered crop, while a pharaoh, like the famous Thutmose IV, would base decisions of state on a divine promise received in a dream at the foot of the Sphinx. The gods themselves were active participants in this nocturnal drama. While major deities like Thoth, the god of wisdom, provided the framework for understanding, it was often the lesser-known protective gods who served as guardians of the dreamer. Bes, the dwarf god with a lion's mane, was a fierce protector against nightmares and evil spirits. His grotesque appearance meant to frighten away any malevolent forces lurking in the dark. Serket, the scorpion goddess, offered her potent protection against venomous creatures and the poisonous thoughts they could represent in dreams. People would often keep small statues of these deities in their sleeping quarters or wear amulets bearing their likeness, creating a sacred, protected space for these vital conversations with the divine to occur unimpeded. This profound cultural framework meant dreams directly influenced the fate of the entire kingdom. Historical records tell us of military campaigns launched, temples founded, and political alliances forged based on the interpreted will of the gods as revealed in dreams. It was a system that provided guidance, offered warnings, and delivered hope, deeply embedding the practice of dream interpretation into the very heart of Egyptian identity, spirituality, and daily life for millennia. At the very heart of the Egyptian world-view was the concept of Mad, a principle that represented truth, balance, and the divine order of the cosmos. This wasn't just a philosophical idea, it was the fundamental fabric of their reality, the reason the sun rose each morning and the Nile flooded each year. Dreams were seen as an essential part of maintaining this cosmic harmony. They were a tool used by the gods to communicate imbalances or confirm that an individual was on the right path, living in accordance with Mad. A favorable dream could mean you were in sync with the universe, while a troubling one might be a divine nudge that your thoughts or actions were straying from this sacred order, requiring correction through prayer, ritual, or a change in behavior. This divine communication was made possible through the unique Egyptian understanding of the soul. They didn't see it as a single entity, but as a collection of interconnected spiritual components. The two most relevant to dreaming were the Ba and the Ka. Think of your Ka as your vital spark, your life force, which stayed constant from birth until after death. Your Ba, however, was your personality, your individuality, often depicted as a human-headed bird. During the deep stillness of sleep, your Ba was believed to be temporarily freed from the body. It could then travel to other realms, interact with gods and the spirits of the departed, and gain knowledge inaccessible to the waking mind. The dream itself was the record of that journey, a cryptic travel log of the soul's nocturnal adventures. This is where the gods stepped in as active guides and participants. Thoth, the ibis-headed god of wisdom, magic, and writing, was considered the ultimate patron of this sacred art. He was the divine scribe who authored the original dream books, providing the symbolic language needed to decipher these nocturnal messages. To dream of Thoth or his symbols was a sign of immense favor, suggesting that the dream's message was one of great importance and intellectual truth. But other deities played crucial roles as well. The goddess Isis, known for her potent magic and role as a protector, was often called upon to send healing dreams or to shield sleepers from false and malicious visions. To receive a dream from her was to receive a gift of power and safeguarding. This intricate spiritual framework made dream interpretation a necessary skill for navigating not only life, but the afterlife as well. The Egyptians believed the lessons learned from dreams could prepare the soul for its final journey through the Juat, the underworld. A dream warning of a personal fault provided an opportunity to correct it in life, thus ensuring a smoother passage after death. This profound connection between the nocturnal and the eternal elevated every dream from a simple nightly occurrence to a critical rehearsal for the ultimate destiny of the soul, cementing its irreplaceable role in one of history's most fascinating and enduring civilizations. This incredible system of belief and interpretation was meticulously recorded. And one of our most extraordinary windows into this ancient practice is a specific document known as the Chester Beatty Papyrus, often called the Egyptian Dream Book. Discovered in the ancient village of Deir el-Medina, this papyrus dates back to the Ramesside period, around the 13th century BC, and it reads less like a mystical text and more like a highly organized reference manual. It presents itself as a series of entries, each one beginning with the phrase, "If a man sees himself in a dream," followed by a specific scenario. What's fascinating is its immediate and practical categorization. Every single dream is labeled as good or bad, providing a clear, unambiguous verdict for the dreamer. This tells us that for the Egyptians, the primary purpose of dream interpretation wasn't just philosophical pondering, it was about obtaining a definitive guide for action, a way to navigate the future based on the gods' counsel. The interpretations themselves are a masterclass in symbolic thinking, deeply rooted in the cultural and physical landscape of ancient Egypt. For instance, the text tells us that dreaming of drinking warm beer was a very bad omen, a sign that suffering was on its way. This makes perfect sense when you consider that warm beer in the hot Egyptian climate would have been stale and unpleasant, a potent symbol of something that had gone wrong. Conversely, dreaming of drinking cold, refreshing beer was an excellent sign, foretelling a future filled with joy and prosperity. Another entry describes seeing a large cat as a very good dream, signaling a bountiful harvest. Here, the cat is almost certainly a symbol of the benevolent sun god Ra, or the protective goddess Bastet, and a great harvest meant the favor of the gods and the security of the entire community. The logic is associative and deeply cultural, drawing direct lines between a symbol in the dream and its real-world counterpart. It's crucial to understand that this wasn't a form of psychology as we think of it today. The dream book doesn't analyze the dreamer's personal anxieties or hidden desires from their waking life. Instead, it operates on the principle that the dream is a coded message, and the symbols are a standardized language that needs the correct translation key. The scribe consulting this papyrus wasn't a therapist, he was a cryptographer, matching the reported imagery to the divine dictionary provided by Thoth. This pragmatic approach made dream interpretation accessible and authoritative, offering clear, actionable insights to anyone, from a royal vizier to a humble farmer worrying about his fields. While the Chester Beatty Papyrus is our most complete guide, it was far from the only source of this sacred knowledge. Temple walls are adorned with inscriptions recounting the powerful dreams of pharaohs, dreams that often served as divine mandates for construction. A pharaoh might dream of a god commanding him to build a new temple or add a specific shrine, and these inscriptions served as permanent, public records of their piety and the divine approval for their reign. Royal annals and decrees also frequently cited dreams as justification for military campaigns or major political decisions, embedding this practice into the highest levels of statecraft. Together, these texts form a comprehensive picture of a civilization that listened intently to the whispers of the night, believing that the most important messages often arrived not in the light of day, but in the mysterious, symbolic visions of sleep. Given their profound reliance on the Nile, it's no surprise that water held a uniquely powerful and layered meaning in the Egyptian dream world. More than just a substance, water was a fundamental force, the source of all life, a purifying agent, and a profound metaphor for the flow of emotions and the subconscious mind. The annual inundation of the Nile was the very heartbeat of their civilization, bringing fertile black silt that transformed the desert into a lush, life-giving paradise. This cyclical event of death and rebirth was etched into their collective consciousness, and it directly shaped how they understood the presence of water in their dreams. To see clear, flowing water in a dream was one of the most auspicious signs possible. It was a direct echo of the life-giving Nile flood, interpreted as a powerful omen of renewal, emotional clarity, and coming prosperity. It signaled that the gods were providing nourishment, that a period of personal stagnation was ending, and that fertile new opportunities were on the horizon. Conversely, the dream books offered stark warnings about water that was troubled or still. Dreaming of muddy, churning water was a sign of deep emotional confusion, internal turmoil, or a crisis of faith. It suggested the dreamer's path was unclear, clouded by doubt or external influences, much like the Nile's waters became opaque and chaotic during the early stages of the flood. Stagnant water, however, was perhaps an even more troubling vision. In a culture defined by the essential, life-sustaining movement of the river, water that did not flow was unnatural and dangerous. It symbolized emotional blockages, a failure to progress in life, or even a spiritual sickness. A dream of standing in a stagnant pool might have been interpreted as an urgent message to seek purification, perhaps through prayer to Hapi, the god of the Nile inundation, or to confront a situation in waking life that was causing energetic decay. These interpretations become even more vivid when we look at specific scenarios. For instance, dreaming of drinking from a cool, clear, sacred spring or a temple well was seen as a moment of direct divine communion. It meant the dreamer was receiving the wisdom and favor of the gods, quenching a spiritual thirst and being granted the clarity needed to navigate life's challenges. On the opposite end of the spectrum, the terrifying experience of drowning in a dream was not seen as a literal prediction of death, but rather a potent metaphor for being overwhelmed. It was a critical warning from the subconscious, or perhaps from a protective deity like Isis, that the dreamer was in over their head in some aspect of their waking life. It could be a caution against reckless financial decisions, a toxic relationship, or taking on responsibilities that would lead to emotional suffocation. The message was clear: retreat to higher ground, reassess your situation, and avoid being swallowed by the currents of poor judgment. This deep, symbolic connection between water and well-being shows just how intimately the Egyptians wove their physical environment into their understanding of the human psyche, creating a timeless system where the geography of the land shaped the map of the soul. Of all the symbols that populated the ancient Egyptian dreamscape, animals were among the most potent and frequent messengers. This makes perfect sense when you consider that their entire world was shared with creatures both domestic and wild, each observed with a keen eye for its unique nature and behavior. The Egyptians didn't just see an animal, they saw a living embodiment of a divine principle. A dream animal was rarely just an animal, it was a cipher, a compact package of meaning delivered directly from the gods, and its interpretation depended on a deep understanding of its sacred associations. Take the domestic cat, for example. To dream of a cat, especially a large, healthy one, was considered an exceedingly favorable omen. This symbol was intrinsically tied to the goddess Bastet, the benevolent protector of the home who wielded fierce power against evil spirits and vermin. A cat in your dream was a sign that you were under her divine guard, that your household was safe from both physical and spiritual harm. It could also symbolize grace, intuition, and independence, encouraging the dreamer to trust their inner instincts. But the meaning could shift subtly. A wounded or agitated cat might signal that your protective energies were compromised, a nudge to reinforce your personal boundaries. Then there is the snake, a creature of profound duality in the Egyptian mind. On one hand, the serpent could represent renewal and healing, as snakes shed their skin and emerge renewed, a powerful symbol of transformation. But its more common and potent association was with Apophis, the colossal serpent of chaos who threatened to devour the sun god Ra each night. Dreaming of a snake, particularly a large or aggressive one, was often interpreted as a warning of a hidden threat, a betrayal lurking in the shadows, or a personal struggle with chaotic forces in your life. It was the dream equivalent of a divine alarm bell, urging vigilance and spiritual strength to overcome the encroaching disorder. Beyond these two, the animal symbols were rich and varied. Dreaming of a mighty bull was a powerful sign of raw physical strength, virility, and kingly authority, connected to gods like Ptah and Apis. It could predict a period of great productive energy and robust health. Birds, with their ability to travel between the earth and the sky, were almost universally seen as messengers from the spirit world. A falcon might signify a message from Horus, the sky god, concerning victory or clarity of vision, while an ibis could point to a need for wisdom and thoughtful communication from Thoth. And of course, the humble scarab beetle, pushing its ball of dung, was one of the most positive symbols of all. It represented the sun god Ra rolling the sun across the sky, symbolizing rebirth, luck, and the ability to transform something base into something beautiful. To see a scarab in a dream was a promise of a new beginning, a successful transformation, and the eternal cycle of renewal. Now, imagine closing your eyes and finding yourself standing face to face with a radiant, otherworldly being, a god or goddess from the ancient Egyptian pantheon. In a culture that viewed the barrier between the human and the divine as remarkably thin, such a dream was not merely impressive, it was considered one of the most profound and significant experiences a person could have. This was understood as a direct audience with a deity, a personal communique from the cosmos itself, far surpassing the symbolic messages delivered through animals or natural elements. When a god or goddess appeared in a dream, it was a moment of powerful connection, carrying a weight that often demanded a tangible response in waking life. Let's begin with Isis, the great mother and magician of the gods. To dream of her radiant, nurturing presence was an immense blessing, often interpreted as a promise of powerful protection, profound healing, or the arrival of supportive, maternal energy in your life. If you are facing an illness or a period of vulnerability, a visitation from Isis could be seen as a divine assurance that you were being watched over and that recovery was at hand. Her appearance might also signal that your own innate creative or protective powers were being activated, encouraging you to use your skills to nurture a project or a relationship. In contrast, a dream featuring Osiris, the Lord of the afterlife and the Judge of the dead, would steer the message toward themes of justice, renewal, and necessary endings. His presence could indicate that you are navigating a period of significant transition or transformation, the metaphorical death of an old part of your life, making way for a resurrection into something new. It was a nudge to evaluate your actions with integrity, to seek balance, and to trust in the cyclical nature of existence, even when facing loss. Other deities brought their own unique energies into the dreaming mind. A vision of Ra, the mighty sun god, with his falcon head and solar disk, was a burst of pure divine power and clarity. This dream often signified a moment of brilliant illumination where a truth was revealed, a path became clear, or your personal authority was being confirmed. It was the ultimate symbol of seeing things as they truly are, banishing the shadows of doubt and confusion. If your dream guide was Anubis, the jackal-headed god of embalming, the message was likely one of deep introspection and guidance through a sacred transition. Far from being a dark omen, Anubis represented the compassionate psychopomp, the guide of souls. His appearance suggested you were being helped through an ending, be it the end of a job, a relationship, or an old habit, and were being prepared to move wisely into the next chapter of your life. And then there is Hathor, the goddess of joy, music, and love. To dream of her was to receive an infusion of pure creative inspiration and celebration. It was a divine encouragement to embrace beauty, to connect with others heartfully, and to find moments of pleasure and artistic expression amidst life's challenges. For the ancient Egyptians, such a potent dream was never meant to be simply noted and forgotten. It required a response, an act of gratitude or reverence to honor the deity's message and to solidify its positive influence or ward off any potential danger. This often took the form of a personal ritual or a dedicated offering. An individual who dreamed of Isis might visit her local temple shrine to leave a small offering of milk or honey, symbols of nourishment and sweetness, while quietly offering a prayer of thanks for her protection. Someone visited by Osiris might spend time in quiet reflection, perhaps by the Nile, contemplating the cycles of their own life and reaffirming their commitment to living justly. These acts of devotion completed the circuit of communication, transforming a private nocturnal vision into a public, tangible practice that strengthened the dreamer's bond with the divine and actively wove the dream's wisdom into the fabric of their daily existence. In the Egyptian understanding, even the most unsettling dreams held the potential for profound meaning, and this was perhaps most true for visions involving death. Unlike our modern tendency to view such dreams as purely frightening or morbid, the ancient Egyptians approached them with a nuanced perspective shaped entirely by their core belief that physical death was not an end, but a transition to another, equally important phase of existence. Their entire culture was oriented toward preparing for the afterlife, the journey through the Duat, and the hope of eternal life with the gods. Consequently, dreaming of death rarely pointed to a literal, physical demise. Instead, it was almost always interpreted as a powerful metaphor for transformation, the necessary end of one state of being to make way for the birth of another. Consider the experience of dreaming of a funeral. In our modern context, this might instinctively feel like a premonition of loss, but for an ancient Egyptian, this vision was far more likely to be seen as a positive sign of a successful conclusion. It signaled the symbolic burial of an old habit, an outdated belief, a toxic relationship, or a period of struggle. It was the universe's way of confirming that a chapter was definitively closing, making space for a new and better beginning. The funeral rites in the dream represented a respectful and proper ending, ensuring that this past phase was laid to rest peacefully and completely, without loose ends to haunt the dreamer's future. It was an omen of closure and release. An even more intense experience would be dreaming of seeing oneself dead. While undoubtedly jarring, this was not a cause for panic. Egyptian dream interpreters would likely explain this as a powerful symbol of ego dissolution, the death of the limited, earthly self to allow for the awakening of a higher consciousness or a more authentic identity. It was a call for deep self-reflection, urging the dreamer to examine what parts of their life, their personality, or their attachments were no longer serving their higher purpose. This dream could be a divine nudge to let go of pride, shed an outdated self-image, or release a burden they had been carrying for far too long. In a spiritual sense, it was a rehearsal, a way for the soul to practice for its ultimate journey, making the real transition after death feel less foreign and frightening. However, the Egyptians were also profoundly practical. They recognized that while the core message might be positive, the energy of such potent dreams could still be unsettling or attract unwanted influences. Therefore, they developed specific rituals and precautions to manage this powerful dream energy. It was common practice to use protective amulets, like the sacred eye of Horus or the image of the dwarf god Bes, placed near the sleeping area to guard against any chaotic or negative spirits that might be drawn to the vulnerability of a deep, transformative dream. Upon waking from a powerful death-related vision, an individual might immediately recite a prayer or a hymn to a protective deity like Isis or Anubis, not to cancel the dream's message, but to purify its energy and ensure only its beneficial, transformative influence remained. They might also make a small offering at a household shrine, a bit of food, a drop of wine, as an act of gratitude for the divine guidance and a request for continued protection as they integrated the dreams lesson. This balanced approach allowed them to honor the deep wisdom of the subconscious while actively shaping their spiritual safety, turning a potentially frightening experience into a guided step on the path of personal evolution. Now let's turn our attention upward to one of the most exhilarating and universally shared dream experiences, the sensation of flight. In ancient Egypt, a dream of soaring above the earth was far more than a fanciful escape. It was a profound spiritual metaphor, deeply intertwined with their beliefs about the soul's true nature and its ultimate destiny. To fly in a dream was to momentarily touch the divine, to experience the boundless freedom of the Ba, that part of the human spirit depicted as a bird with a human head, which could travel between worlds once released from the body in sleep. This was not merely wish fulfillment, it was a direct experience of the soul's highest purpose, a taste of the ascent that awaited after death, when the soul would journey through the heavens to join the gods. The emotional tone of the flight was absolutely crucial to its interpretation. A dream where you are soaring effortlessly, feeling a sense of joy and expansion, was one of the most positive omens you could receive. It signaled that you were in alignment with your true path, that you were rising above your current earthly limitations, and that you were open to receiving higher wisdom or creative inspiration. This kind of dream often came during periods of breakthrough or personal growth, a divine confirmation that you were transcending old challenges. It might also reflect a deep, subconscious connection to a deity like Horus, the falcon-headed god of the sky, whose domain was the heavens. To fly like Horus was to gain his perspective, to see your life and its obstacles from a higher, more strategic vantage point, granting you the clarity to navigate waking life with greater confidence and purpose. But what if the flight in your dream was fraught with fear or struggle? The ancient interpreters paid close attention to these nuances. If you dreamed of trying to fly but being unable to lift off the ground, or feeling weighed down, this was not a dismissal of your potential. Instead, it was seen as a specific message about a current obstacle. It might indicate that something in your waking life, perhaps a fear, a responsibility, or a limiting belief, was holding you back from expressing your full capabilities or pursuing a desired freedom. A dream where you are flying but then suddenly falling carried a similar, though more urgent, meaning. While not a prediction of literal failure, it was a warning against overconfidence or hubris, a message to stay grounded in your plans and to ensure your spiritual ambitions were matched with practical action. So how can you apply this ancient wisdom to your own flying dreams? Start by recalling the feeling. Did you feel powerful and free, or anxious and restrained? That emotional core is your first clue. Then, consider the view. What did you see below you? A lush, fertile landscape might signal prosperity and growth, while a barren desert could point to a feeling of emptiness or a need to seek new sources of nourishment in your life. Most importantly, ask yourself what you are seeking to rise above or escape from in your waking hours. The dream is often a mirror, reflecting your deepest desires for liberation from a stressful situation, a confining routine, or even an outdated way of thinking about yourself. Ultimately, the Egyptians saw these dreams as an invitation to embrace the freedom of your own spirit, to seek a higher perspective on your challenges, and to trust in your ability to navigate your path with grace and vision. They remind us that within each of us is that Ba, that essential self that is not bound by the limits of the physical world, always ready to ascend, to explore, and to connect with something greater. Food is such a fundamental part of our daily existence, providing not just physical nourishment, but also comfort, joy, and a centerpiece for our social gatherings. The ancient Egyptians understood this profound connection intimately, and their dream interpretations reflected it. For them, dreaming of food was never just about hunger, it was a direct commentary on one's spiritual, emotional, and material state. A vision of abundance at the table was a sign of the god's favor, while spoiled or bitter food served as a divine caution. The type of food, its condition, and even the act of consuming it were all pieces of a symbolic puzzle, offering a glimpse into the future health of one's relationships, finances, and personal well-being. Let's start with the most essential staple of the Egyptian diet, bread. In a land where the fertility of the Nile's black soil directly dictated survival, bread was far more than a simple carbohydrate. It was the very symbol of life itself, deeply associated with Osiris, the god of rebirth and agriculture. To dream of baking bread, especially if the loaves were plentiful and golden brown, was an incredibly positive sign. It predicted sustenance and security, suggesting that your hard work, perhaps in your career or a personal project, would soon yield fruitful and tangible results. Seeing yourself breaking bread with others signaled coming harmony and strengthened bonds within your family or community. However, the dream books offered stark warnings for bread that was burnt, moldy, or uncooked. This was a clear metaphor for plans that would fail, efforts that would be wasted, or promises that would prove hollow. It was a message to re-evaluate a situation you were investing in, as the expected return might not materialize. Beyond bread, other foods carried equally specific meanings. Honey, the sweet gift of the gods, was a powerful symbol of pleasure, prosperity, and divine blessing. Dreaming of eating honey or tasting its sweetness foretold a period of joy, romantic happiness, or the successful conclusion of a difficult endeavor. It was the universe's way of promising that life was about to get a little sweeter. On the opposite end of the spectrum, bitter herbs like coriander or garlic, while used in cooking and medicine, held a dual meaning in dreams. In moderation, they could signify protection or healing, but to dream of eating them in excess or tasting overwhelming bitterness was a warning of arguments, gossip, or a painful truth that was about to come to light. It prepared the dreamer for a challenging conversation or a period of emotional difficulty. Even the act of a feast held deep significance. To find yourself at a lavish banquet, eating and drinking with joy, was a powerful omen of celebration, abundance, and social success on the horizon. It suggested an expansion of your influence and the strengthening of your social circle, but a dream where you are at a feast but unable to eat, or where the food is denied to you, pointed to feelings of isolation, envy, or being excluded from an opportunity that others were enjoying. This could relate to a professional setting where you felt overlooked, or a social group where you didn't feel you belonged. The ancient Egyptians believed these dietary dreams were not just predictions to be observed, they were guidance to be acted upon. A prosperous dream about a bountiful harvest might inspire a farmer to plant an extra field with confidence. A troubling dream about rotten fruit might prompt a merchant to double-check his business accounts for signs of deceit or poor investment. Someone who dreamed of a splendid feast might take it as a sign to host a gathering and strengthen their community ties, while a vision of bitterness could be a call to proactively address a simmering conflict before it spoiled a relationship. By viewing their dreams through this practical, symbolic lens, they transformed nightly visions into an active tool for navigating and improving their waking reality. But what happens when the very foundations of that world appear in your dreams? When the monumental architecture of ancient Egypt, the pyramids, the vast temples, the towering obelisks rises up from your subconscious, in the Egyptian view, these weren't just random buildings, they were the ultimate expressions of human ambition reaching for the divine, stone embodiments of stability, power, and eternal truth. To dream of them was to engage with these profound concepts on a deeply personal level, as your sleeping mind used these familiar, powerful forms to map out your own inner landscape of aspirations and spiritual quests. Picture the sheer, imposing form of a pyramid. In waking life, it was a tomb designed to launch a pharaoh's soul to the stars, a project that demanded generations of labor and unwavering vision. To see one in your dream, especially if you were approaching it or beginning to climb, was a powerful signal that you were on a significant journey of self-discovery. It represented a long-term goal that required patience, dedication, and a solid foundation. The pyramid's peak symbolized the ultimate achievement, be it a career milestone, mastering a skill, or reaching a new level of personal understanding. The effort of the ascent reflected the hard work ahead, but the very presence of the pyramid was a reassurance that the goal was noble, stable, and within reach if you remained committed to the climb. A temple, on the other hand, spoke to a different kind of seeking. Where the pyramid was about a singular, towering achievement, the temple was about connection, wisdom, and inner sanctums. Dreaming of standing before a massive pylon gateway, like those at Karnak or Luxor, indicated you were on the threshold of acquiring new knowledge or spiritual insight. It was an invitation to step inside yourself, to explore the sacred spaces of your own mind and heart. Walking through the columned halls of a dream temple suggested a process of learning and reflection, perhaps a need to study or meditate on a pressing issue. If your dream allowed you to enter the innermost sanctuary, the Holy of Holies, it was an immensely positive sign. This symbolized achieving a state of profound clarity, connecting with your core truth, or receiving a moment of divine inspiration that could guide your path forward. Yet, not all architectural dreams were so clearly defined or positive. The condition of the structure held critical meaning. Discovering a hidden chamber or a secret passage within a pyramid or temple was a thrilling omen. This almost always pointed to the discovery of untapped potential within yourself, a hidden talent, a forgotten memory holding the key to a current problem, or an insight you hadn't yet acknowledged. It was a call to explore the hidden rooms of your own psyche, promising that a valuable secret awaited your discovery. Conversely, witnessing a crumbling wall, a cracked obelisk, or sand slowly engulfing a structure carried a more cautionary message. This symbolized feelings of vulnerability, a fear that something you had worked hard to build, be it a relationship, your reputation, or a project, was under threat or was not as stable as you believed. It wasn't necessarily a prediction of failure, but rather a divine alert to inspect your foundations, to reinforce your boundaries, and to address the slow erosions of doubt or neglect before serious damage occurred. So how do you harness the power of these dreams? When you awake with the image of an Egyptian monument fresh in your mind, don't just dismiss it. Ask yourself what it represents in your life right now. Is the pyramid a project you're building? Is the temple a quest for knowledge you've been putting off? Is a cracked wall a relationship that needs mending? Use the sheer scale and permanence of these forms as motivation. They were built to last for eternity, reminding you that your most meaningful pursuits are worth the immense effort and patience required. Let the dream be the architect's blueprint for your own ambitions, encouraging you to build your life with the same intention and grandeur, one solid, purposeful stone at a time. The vast elemental forces that shaped the very soul of ancient Egypt also dominated its dream world. The sun, the moon, the stars, and the endless desert were not just parts of the landscape. They were living deities and powerful symbols, each carrying a universe of meaning into the sleeping mind. To dream of these celestial and earthly giants was to engage directly with the core principles of existence itself, and the Egyptians had a sophisticated framework for understanding their messages. Let's begin with the sun, the most dominant force in their lives. As the embodiment of the god Ra, the sun was the ultimate symbol of creation, power, and absolute clarity. Dreaming of the sun at its zenith, shining brightly and warmly overhead, was one of the most favorable visions possible. It signaled a period of immense vitality, success, and divine favor. It meant that the dreamer was fully illuminated, that truth was being revealed, and that their personal power and authority were at a peak. This was a dream of confidence and conquest. However, the context was everything. A dream of a sunrise with its gentle, growing light was a beautiful omen of new beginnings, the dawn of a brilliant idea, or the successful start of a long-term project. It was Ra offering his blessing for a fresh chapter, but to see a sunset, especially a sudden or premature one, could indicate a waning of energy, the end of a cycle, or a decline in personal influence. The most alarming solar dream was an eclipse where the sun was blotted out by a shadow. This was not seen as a permanent catastrophe, but rather a potent warning of a temporary setback, a period of confusion where the divine will seemed hidden, or a challenge that required the dreamer to find their inner strength until the light returned. In beautiful contrast, the moon offered a different kind of wisdom. Governed by gods of intellect and mystery like Thoth and Khonsu, the moon represented the cyclical nature of life, the subconscious mind, and the realm of intuition. A dream of a full, bright moon hanging in a clear night sky was a call to trust your instincts. It suggested that hidden knowledge was available to you, that a situation required more subtlety and reflection than brute force, and that the answers you sought would come through quiet contemplation rather than loud action. The phase of the moon was critically important. A waxing moon, growing fuller each night, indicated that a plan or project was gaining momentum and should be nurtured. A waning moon, however, suggested that it was a time to release, to let go of something that had run its course, and to prepare for a new cycle to begin. To dream of a new moon where the sky was dark was a powerful symbol of potential yet unrealized. It marked a moment of pure possibility, a blank slate upon which the dreamer could project their deepest intentions, but it also called for patience, as what was seeded in the dark would need time to grow. If the moon governed intuition, the blanket of stars was the map of destiny. The Egyptians were meticulous astronomers, and they believed the stars were the physical manifestations of the gods and the abode of blessed souls. To dream of a clear, star-filled sky was a profoundly spiritual experience. It indicated that you were being divinely guided, that your path was aligned with your deeper purpose, and that you were under the protective watch of the cosmos. It was an encouragement to navigate by your highest ideals, dreaming of a specific constellation, like the unchangeable circumpolar stars they called the imperishable ones, was a promise of stability and eternal life. However, a dream where the stars were dim, obscured by clouds, or falling from the sky carried a different message. It could signal feelings of being lost or disconnected from your purpose, a fear that your plans were failing, or a period where divine guidance felt distant. This was interpreted as a call to reconnect with your core beliefs and to seek clarity before moving forward. And then there was the desert, the red land that represented the harsh, chaotic opposite of the life-giving Nile Valley. To dream of the desert was to dream of trial and transformation. Finding yourself alone in a vast, arid landscape often symbolized a period of isolation, a spiritual test, or a feeling of being emotionally barren. It was a reflection of a journey through a difficult time where external support seemed scarce, but the Egyptians also saw the desert as a place of purification. Just as they ventured into the arid wastes to mine for precious gold and jewels, a dream of surviving the desert, or especially of discovering an oasis within it, was a powerful sign of impending triumph after struggle. It meant that the dreamer had the inner resources to endure hardship and would emerge purified, stronger, and rewarded for their resilience. This vision promised that even in the most barren periods of life, a wellspring of strength and renewal could be found within. Even the most peaceful soul can be plunged into the chaos of a conflict dream, heart-pounding, running from an unseen enemy, or locked in a desperate struggle. In our modern view, we might dismiss these as simple anxiety dreams, but the ancient Egyptians saw them with far greater gravity. They believed these intense visions were critical dispatches from the subconscious or direct warnings from the gods, often highlighting a rupture in the delicate balance of mad, either within the individual or in their external world. A dream of conflict wasn't just a bad night's sleep, it was a diagnostic tool pointing directly to a spiritual, emotional, or practical problem demanding immediate attention. One of the most potent conflict dreams involved a battle with a serpent, a scenario rich with symbolic meaning, given the serpent's primary association with Apophis, the eternal enemy of light and order. This dream was almost always interpreted as a sign of a monumental internal or external struggle. The key to the message lay in the dream's outcome. If you dreamed of successfully fighting off or even slaying the serpent, it was a powerful omen of victory. It meant you possessed the spiritual strength to overcome a significant challenge, conquer a deep-seated fear, or fend off a malicious influence in your waking life. You were the champion of order against chaos. However, a dream where the serpent was winning or constricting you carried a far more urgent warning. This suggested you were feeling overwhelmed by a situation, perhaps trapped by a toxic relationship or a dishonest business partner, and the divine message was a clear call to seek help, reinforce your defenses, and marshal your resources before the chaos took hold. Another common and visceral experience was the dream of being chased. The instinct to flee is primal, and the Egyptians interpreted this not as cowardice, but as a profound metaphor for avoidance. The nature of the pursuer was the first clue. Were you fleeing a wild animal, a human enemy, or a shadowy, undefined figure? An animal might represent a raw, untamed emotion like rage or jealousy that you were refusing to confront. A human pursuer could symbolize a specific person or a more general social conflict you were trying to escape. The vague, faceless chaser often pointed to a looming deadline, a gnawing guilt, or an abstract fear of failure you were refusing to face. The dream was a divine nudge, sometimes a shove, to stop running and turn to address the source of your anxiety. The very act of turning to face the pursuer in the dream, even if you then awoke, could be interpreted as the first step toward reclaiming your power and resolving the conflict. Of course, not all conflict dreams ended in flight. Some placed you in the midst of a grand, chaotic battle. Unlike the personal duel with a serpent, a large-scale battle dream often reflected your perception of the world around you. It could symbolize feeling caught in the middle of a family dispute, a stressful work environment, or broader social tensions. Winning such a battle was a positive sign that you would navigate these turbulent waters successfully and emerge with your integrity and relationships intact. But losing or witnessing a bloody stalemate indicated that the conflict was draining your energy and that a change in strategy, perhaps diplomacy or a tactical withdrawal, was necessary for your well-being. The crucial Egyptian wisdom lies in their prescribed response. They did not believe you should simply wake up relieved and forget the terror. The dream was a call to action. The first step was reflection, carefully replaying the dream to identify the antagonist and the nature of the struggle. This was often followed by a practical action, addressing the real-world source of the stress, whether it was having a difficult conversation, setting a firmer boundary, or re-evaluating a project. Simultaneously, they engaged in spiritual action, a prayer to a protective deity like Sekhmet, the fierce warrior goddess, for strength, or to Thoth for the wisdom to navigate the conflict wisely. They might make a small offering to appease the spirit of the conflict they sensed, or wear an amulet of Bes for protection against nightly terrors. This holistic approach of mental, practical, and spiritual engagement transformed a frightening dream from a source of fear into a valuable tool for personal resolution and growth. an ancient method for finding peace by first confronting the storm. In the land of the pharaohs, wealth was never viewed as a purely material pursuit. It was a tangible sign of divine favor and cosmic balance. To dream of stumbling upon a gleaming chest of gold coins or unearthing a cache of lapis lazuli and carnelian jewels was therefore one of the most heartening visions one could receive. This was not merely a prediction of financial windfall, it was a profound symbol that the gods, particularly Ptah, the divine patron of craftsmen, creation, and abundance, were smiling upon you. Such a dream signaled that your efforts were aligned with Maat, and that a period of flourishing, be it in your career, your creative projects, or your personal life, was on the immediate horizon. The discovery itself was the key. It represented the universe revealing hidden opportunities, untapped resources within yourself, or a sudden clarity that would lead to significant gain. Imagine a scribe dreaming of finding a pristine, untouched roll of papyrus and a pot of fresh ink. This would be interpreted as a divine promise that his skills were about to be recognized and rewarded with a prestigious commission. Yet, the ancient interpreters were wise to the dual nature of desire. A dream of wealth could also carry a cautionary message, a subtle warning from the gods to examine your heart's true priorities. The critical factor was the context and your emotional state within the dream. Were you filled with a sense of joyful gratitude and awe at your discovery, or were you gripped by a frantic, possessive greed, hastily stuffing your pockets and looking over your shoulder? The latter emotion transformed the omen. It suggested that your pursuit of material security in waking life was tipping into avarice, potentially at the expense of your spiritual well-being or your relationships. To dream of hoarding treasure in a secret place, never to be shared, was a clear signal that you were valuing possessions over people, a dangerous imbalance that could attract the notice of a trickster spirit or lead you away from your true path. This nuanced view is perfectly illustrated by the more distressing counterpart, the dream of losing wealth. Waking in a panic from a vision where your precious jewels have slipped through your fingers or your stored grain has been stolen was undoubtedly frightening. However, the Egyptian dream books would often interpret this not as a literal prediction of bankruptcy, but as a reflection of an internal fear. It might reveal a deep-seated anxiety about your ability to provide for your family, a worry that a project you've invested heavily in is about to fail, or a subconscious recognition that you are placing too much of your self-worth on external markers of success. This dream served as a powerful mirror, asking you to confront what you truly feared losing and to reassess what you considered your real riches. The ultimate guidance from these dreams was always toward balance. The Egyptians understood that material prosperity was a natural and welcome part of a harmonious life, but it was not the entirety of it. A dream of abundant wealth was an invitation to enjoy the fruits of your labor with gratitude and to use your resources generously, thereby generating more positive energy and maintaining Maat. A dream tainted by greed or loss was a divine nudge to recenter, to pour energy into your spiritual practices, your family bonds, and your personal growth. It was a reminder that while the god Ptah could grant abundance, it was the goddess Maat who governed its righteous use. The true treasure was not the gold in the chest, but the wisdom to use it in a way that honored the self, the community, and the gods, ensuring that your prosperity was built on a foundation that no thief could ever steal and no market crash could ever diminish. Of all the dreams that visited an ancient Egyptian, none were taken more seriously than those that returned again and again. In a culture that viewed every nocturnal vision as a potential message, a recurring dream was the divine equivalent of a persistent knock at the door, a sign that an issue was of such importance that the gods, or the deepest self, would not rest until it was acknowledged and addressed. This wasn't seen as a glitch in the subconscious, it was a deliberate, amplified communication, highlighting a pattern in your life that demanded resolution, a lesson that needed learning, or a path that required your conscious attention. The very repetition was the core of the message, signaling that whatever was being shown had not yet been fully integrated or resolved in your waking existence. To decipher this persistent code, the Egyptians paid meticulous attention to the patterns within the pattern. The first step was to identify the unchanging core of the dream. Was it the same symbol that appeared each time, a specific animal like a snake or a falcon, a body of water that was always calm or always turbulent? Or was it the emotional tone that remained constant, a recurring feeling of fear, exhilaration, or profound peace that lingered long after the specific dream details faded? Perhaps it was the scenario itself that was on repeat, finding yourself lost in the same temple courtyard or facing the same unseen adversary night after night. Pinpointing this stable element was the first crucial step, as it pointed directly to the central theme the dream was trying to communicate. A recurring vision of a flooding Nile, for instance, wasn't just a one-off warning of emotional overwhelm. It was a signal of a persistent cycle in your life where you felt repeatedly swamped by circumstances, a pattern that needed to be broken. The ancient scribes, who served as the professional interpreters of their day, understood the power of recording these patterns. They were among the first to practice a form of dream journaling, meticulously documenting the visions of pharaohs and commoners alike on scraps of papyrus or pottery shards called ostraca. We can imagine a scribe advising a troubled dreamer to keep a similar record, instructing them to note not just the events of the dream, but the time of night, the emotions felt, and any events from the previous day that might have triggered the recurring theme. This act of writing it down was itself a form of ritual acknowledgement, a way of saying to the divine, "I am listening." By reviewing these records, patterns over weeks or months would emerge, revealing deeper layers of meaning. A dream of a menacing snake might first appear as a simple warning, but if it recurred every time the dreamer was about to make a public speech, the interpretation would shift. The snake was no longer just a symbol of chaos, but a specific representation of a recurring fear of being judged or attacked when expressing oneself, a deeply ingrained instinct that needed to be confronted. Once the pattern was identified, the response was active, not passive. The Egyptians believed that a recurring dream required a ritualized answer to complete the circuit of communication. This wasn't about making the dream stop through suppression. It was about honoring its message so thoroughly that its purpose was fulfilled. For a recurring dream that carried a positive message, perhaps a repeated vision of a flourishing sycamore tree, a symbol of the goddess Hathor and eternal life, the ritual might be one of gratitude and reinforcement. The dreamer might plant a real tree in their courtyard as a living altar, tending to it as a physical manifestation of the growth and stability the dream promised. But for a troubling recurring dream, the ritual was a form of sympathetic magic aimed at resolution. If someone was plagued by a vision of being chased by a shadowy figure, an interpreter might guide them to create a small figurine representing the pursuer. In a controlled, sacred space, they would then perform a ritual of confrontation, perhaps speaking to the figurine to demand its purpose or symbolically breaking it to banish the fear. This act of physically engaging with the dream's energy in the waking world was believed to disarm its power, showing the subconscious and any spirits involved that the message had been received and the necessary internal work had begun. This ancient approach offers a powerful framework for us today. When a dream recurs, see it not as a burden, but as a dedicated guide pointing to an unresolved aspect of your journey. The key is to move from passive observation to active engagement. Start by honoring the pattern through journaling, giving the dream the respect of your full attention. Then, look for its reflection in your daily life. Is the recurring dream of a blocked path mirroring a career situation where you feel consistently stalled? Is the repeated appearance of a protective deity like Bastet a reminder to nurture your own inner strength and boundaries by making a conscious change in your waking life aligned with the dream's core message, whether it's having a difficult conversation you've been avoiding or dedicating time to a neglected creative pursuit? You actively work with the dream's energy. In doing so, you transform a mysterious nightly visitation into a practical tool for profound personal transformation, finally answering the persistent call of your own deeper wisdom. Recognizing dreams as a sacred bridge to the divine, the ancient Egyptians developed a sophisticated array of rituals and practices designed to cultivate, protect, and decipher these nightly visions. This was not a passive process of simply going to sleep and hoping for the best. It was an active, intentional spiritual technology for those seeking answers to a pressing question, healing from an illness, or divine guidance for a decision. The practice of dream incubation was a powerful tool. An individual would journey to a temple complex dedicated to a deity known for oracular power, such as Serapis, the Hellenistic Egyptian god of healing and dreams, or the ancient goddess Isis. After undergoing purification rites, perhaps bathing in sacred waters and abstaining from certain foods, the seeker would present an offering and recite a specific prayer or chant, formally petitioning the god for a dream that would provide the needed answer. They would then lie down to sleep in a special chamber within the temple precinct, a liminal space believed to be thin on the veil between worlds, and await the divine response that often came in the form of a vivid, symbolic dream. Protection was considered equally vital, as the vulnerable state of sleep was thought to leave one open to malevolent spirits or chaotic forces that could send false or terrifying visions. To safeguard this sacred communication, Egyptians routinely employed amulets and talismans. The most common of these was the Wedjat eye, or the Eye of Horus, a potent symbol of wholeness, protection, and royal power. Crafted from faience, gold, or carved stone, this amulet would be placed in the sleeping area or even worn to bed to ward off negative influences and ensure the dreams received were pure and true. Small statues of the dwarf god Bes, with his fierce, lion-like visage, were also popular guardians of the bedroom, his grotesque features meant to frighten away any evil spirits that dared approach. For an extra layer of security, individuals might inscribe a protective spell on a piece of papyrus and tuck it beneath their headrest, creating a sacred boundary around their subconscious journey. Beyond prayer and protection, there were also more physical methods believed to prepare the mind and spirit for clear vision. Historical evidence suggests the use of herbal concoctions, though the exact recipes are lost to time. It is believed that mild, non-toxic herbs known for their calming or slightly psychoactive properties might have been brewed into teas or burned as incense to relax the body and gently alter consciousness, making the dreamer more receptive to symbolic messages. The scent of frankincense or myrrh likely filled the air, not just for their pleasing aroma, but for their sacred association with purification and connection to the gods. The entire process, from the setting to the sense to the state of mind, was meticulously crafted to optimize the chance of a meaningful, memorable, and transformative dream experience. The beautiful truth is that you don't need access to an ancient Egyptian temple to harness the wisdom of these practices. Their core principles are timeless and can be adapted for modern life to profoundly enrich your own dream world. Start by creating a dedicated dream space in your own bedroom. This begins with intention. Tidy the area, perhaps place a few meaningful objects on a nearby shelf, a crystal you find calming, a symbol that represents protection to you, or an image of an animal that feels significant. This act declares that this corner of your world is reserved for rest and introspection, To emulate the practice of incubation, keep a notebook by your bed. Before sleep, write down a single open-ended question that is weighing on your heart, then simply let it go. Don't force an answer, just offer the question up to your subconscious as the ancient Egyptians offered theirs to serapes, and trust that your mind will work on it during the night. Modern meditation practices are a powerful counterpart to ancient purification rites. A simple 5-minute mindfulness meditation or some gentle stretching before bed can quiet the chatter of the waking mind, effectively clearing the static to allow for a clearer signal from your deeper self. And of course, the ancient practice of journaling finds its direct parallel in keeping a dream diary. Place that notebook next to your bed and make reaching for it the very first thing you do each morning, even before checking your phone. Jot down everything you can remember: images, emotions, colors, even if they seem fragmented and nonsensical. Over time, as you combine this recording with the practices of setting intention and creating a sacred space, you will likely find your dream recall sharpening and the symbolic language of your own subconscious becoming more familiar and easier to understand, opening a daily dialogue with a wisdom that has guided seekers for thousands of years. Imagine your dream is not just a movie, but a painting, every splash of color a deliberate choice loaded with meaning. For the ancient Egyptians, color was a sacred language, a direct reflection of the vibrant world around them and the gods who shaped it. A dream's palette wasn't just decoration, it was a critical layer of its message, with each hue offering a profound clue to its interpretation. Their entire worldview was steeped in this chromatic symbolism, drawn from the very earth and sky of their homeland. Consider the color green, or waj. This was the most life-affirming color imaginable, drawn from the lush, emerald-green papyrus reeds that thrived along the banks of the Nile and the fresh buds of new growth. To dream in shades of green was to receive a powerful omen of health, fertility, and successful renewal. It was the color of Osiris himself, the god of rebirth and agriculture, whose skin was often depicted as green to symbolize eternal life. If your dream was filled with verdant fields, green stones, or lush foliage, it signaled a period of positive growth ahead. Perhaps a creative project was about to blossom, a relationship was entering a fertile new phase, or you were on the verge of a personal breakthrough that would make you feel revitalized and full of vitality. In stark contrast stood red, or desert. This was the color of intense, raw energy with a potent duality. On one hand, it represented life and victory, the fierce power of the sun and the protective fury of the lioness goddess Sekhmet. But on the other, it was the color of the desert, the red land of blood, and of the chaotic god Set, the murderer of Osiris. A dream tinged with red demanded careful attention to context. A red sunrise could indicate a surge of passion, courage, or a triumphant success fueled by your own powerful will, but a dream dominated by deep reds, or worse, seeing blood, was a serious warning. It hinted at uncontrolled anger, a looming conflict, or the dangerous, chaotic influence of others that threatened to throw your life into disorder. It was the universe's urgent alert to tread carefully and guard your energy. Then there is blue, Urtiu, a color synonymous with the divine and the heavens. The Egyptians prized the deep, star-flecked blue of lapis lazuli more than almost any other material, seeing it as a piece of the night sky itself. This color was intimately linked to the creator god Ammon, whose skin was often rendered in a brilliant blue to signify his cosmic nature. To dream in shades of blue, especially the deep azure of lapis, was a sign of divine protection, celestial wisdom, and sacred truth. It suggested that you were under the watchful eye of the gods and that your actions were aligned with a higher purpose. A dream of a clear blue sky or a shimmering blue amulet was a profoundly positive sign, offering reassurance that you were protected and that you could trust the path you were on. Perhaps the most misunderstood color is black, or chem. In our modern world, we often associate it with mourning or emptiness, but for the Egyptians, black was the color of resurrection and potential. It was the color of the rich, black silt left behind by the annual Nile flood, the Kemet that gave Egypt its ancient name, and that was the source of all its agricultural abundance. This fertile black earth was the reason life could spring forth from the desert. Black was also the color of the underworld, the Jewat, not as a place of punishment, but as a realm of regeneration where the sun was reborn each night. To dream in black, therefore, was a complex message about the cycle of endings and beginnings. It might indicate a period of necessary introspection, a time of feeling in the dark before a new understanding emerges. It wasn't a warning of death, but a promise of fertile ground waiting to be seeded, asking for your patience and trust in the process of transformation. So the next time you awaken with the memory of a vivid color lingering in your mind, pause and consider its ancient weight. Was it the calming blue of divine guidance, the urgent red of a warning, the hopeful green of new growth, or the fertile black of silent potential? By understanding this chromatic code, you add a brilliant new layer to deciphering your dreams, connecting your inner world to a symbolic language that has illuminated the human experience for millennia. In the intimate world of our dreams, few figures carry as much emotional weight as those of our family. For the ancient Egyptians, these visions were not mere reflections of daily life, but were rich with symbolic meaning, deeply intertwined with their understanding of kinship, duty, and the enduring connection between the living and the dead. The appearance of a family member in a dream was a significant event, and its interpretation was carefully considered based on the individual's role, their condition in the dream, and the nature of your relationship with them. The family was the foundational unit of society, a microcosm of the cosmic order of Mad, and dreams were believed to hold up a mirror to the health and harmony of these essential bonds. Consider the powerful figure of a parent appearing in your dream. In a culture that revered hierarchy and respect for one's elders, a dream of your father or mother was often interpreted as a message concerning guidance, authority, or the wisdom of tradition. A positive interaction receiving advice, sharing a meal, or simply seeing your parent looking healthy and content was a strong omen of support. It suggested you were on the right path, backed by the stability of your lineage, or that a solution to a current problem would be found by applying traditional wisdom or seeking counsel from a wiser, more experienced person. However, a dream of conflict with a parent, or seeing them angry or ill, could point to an internal struggle with authority figures in your waking life, a feeling that you are not living up to familial expectations, or a disruption in the natural order of your personal or professional world. It was a divine nudge to examine areas where you might be resisting necessary guidance, or where a situation required you to step into a more authoritative role yourself. Conversely, dreaming of a child held entirely different connotations, primarily centered on themes of potential, vulnerability, and new beginnings. Children represented the future, the continuation of the family line, and the legacy one would leave behind. To dream of a happy, playing child, especially if you were caring for them, was an exceedingly favorable sign. It foretold the successful start of a new venture, the birth of a creative idea, or the nurturing of a part of yourself that was still developing. It was a promise that your efforts would bear fruit and that you had the capacity to care for and grow what was most precious to you. Yet, a dream of a lost, crying, or injured child carried a potent and urgent warning. This was rarely about a literal fear for a son or daughter. Instead, it symbolized a vulnerable project, a new responsibility you were neglecting, or a nascent part of your own psyche that felt threatened or abandoned. The dream served as a call to action to protect your investments, to pay attention to the delicate early stages of a plan, or to reconnect with your own sense of innocence and creativity. Perhaps the most profound family dreams involved those who had passed on. The Egyptians held an unwavering belief that death was not an end to relationships, but a transformation of them. Ancestors were not gone, they were revered intercessors, powerful spirits who maintained a vested interest in the well-being of their living descendants and could act as advocates before the gods. Therefore, a dream featuring a deceased relative was treated with the utmost seriousness and respect. It was not a random memory, but a deliberate visitation. A peaceful, comforting appearance from a grandparent or other ancestor was typically seen as a blessing and a sign of their continued protection. They might be offering approval, reassuring you during a time of stress, or confirming that you are honoring the family legacy. They could also be delivering a specific warning, perhaps about a repeating a family mistake, a health concern they had faced, or a potential bad decision they had the perspective to foresee. A restless or unhappy apparition, however, might indicate that an important funerary rite had been neglected or that a family dispute was causing spiritual disharmony that needed to be resolved. The enduring wisdom in these interpretations is their focus on the dynamics of the relationship itself. The Egyptians would urge you to look beyond the simple image of your brother, sister, or cousin and instead focus on what transpires between you in the dreamscape. Are you working together harmoniously on a project which might signal fruitful collaboration in waking life? Or are you arguing over an inheritance which could point to unresolved conflicts or feelings of unfairness? These dreams were seen as a sacred space to work through familial karma, to understand inherited traits, both strengths and burdens, and to receive the lessons your lineage was trying to impart. By paying close attention to these nocturnal family reunions, you could gain invaluable insights to heal old wounds, strengthen current bonds, and ultimately foster the harmony within your own household that the Egyptians believed was essential for a life lived in accordance with Mad. Now picture yourself setting out on a journey in your dreams, perhaps walking a dusty path under the blazing sun or gliding in a slender red boat across the Nile's mirrored surface. In ancient Egypt, such visions were far more than simple nocturnal wanderings. They were profound maps of your soul's progress, reflecting your current life path, your emotional state, and your readiness for spiritual transformation. The mode of travel itself was the first clue. To dream of a swift, sturdy boat cutting gracefully through the water was an excellent omen, a sign that your life was flowing with purpose and that the currents of fate were carrying you smoothly toward your goals. It suggested favorable circumstances, divine support, and a period where your decisions were aligned with the natural order of Mad. Conversely, a dream of a journey beset by obstacles, a chariot with a broken wheel, a path blocked by fallen rocks, or a boat struggling against a strong current served as a crucial warning. This indicated that challenges lay ahead on your chosen path, perhaps internal doubts, external opposition, or unforeseen complications that would require patience, reassessment, and resilience to overcome. The specific landscape of your dream journey held layers of symbolic meaning deeply rooted in the Egyptian experience of their world. A voyage on the Nile was the most potent symbol of emotional and spiritual flow. As we've seen, the river was the lifeblood of the nation, and to dream of sailing its waters was to dream of navigating the depths of your own subconscious. Calm, clear waters promised emotional clarity and the successful navigation of your feelings, while treacherous rapids or a sudden storm warned of upcoming emotional turmoil or relationship conflicts that threatened to capsize your stability. In stark contrast, a dream of traveling through the vast, arid desert represented a journey of endurance, isolation, and purification. The desert, or the Red Land, was the realm of chaos and trial, but also of immense potential reward. Finding yourself trekking through this harsh landscape signaled a period of spiritual testing. a feeling of being emotionally or creatively barren, and the need to rely entirely on your own inner resources. Yet, the ultimate goal of such a desert trek was often an oasis, a discovery of hidden strength, a sudden insight, or a profound renewal that awaited you on the other side of the struggle, much like the precious gold and jewels the Egyptians mined from the barren eastern hills. Perhaps the most awe-inspiring travel dreams were those that transcended the earth entirely, visions of celestial journeys through the star-filled sky. The Egyptians were master astronomers, and they believed the night sky was a celestial Nile, a river of light upon which the sun god Ra sailed his solar bark each day and the blessed dead traveled after judgment. To dream of soaring among the stars or sailing this heavenly river was a powerful experience of spiritual awakening and divine connection. It indicated that you were rising above earthly concerns, gaining a higher perspective on your life, and aligning with your soul's ultimate purpose. This was the dream of the Aku, the blessed, shining spirit, successfully navigating the cosmos. It encouraged you to guide your life by your highest ideals and trust in the grand, cosmic plan. All of these journey dreams find their ultimate echo in the Egyptian concept of the Juat, the mysterious underworld through which every soul had to travel after death. This was not a place of punishment, but a complex realm of trials, gates, and judges that the deceased navigated with the help of spells from the Book of the Dead. A difficult dream journey, therefore, could be seen as a rehearsal for this final passage, a way for your soul to practice overcoming obstacles and confronting its shadows. A dream where you successfully find your way through a confusing labyrinth or answer a challenging riddle from a mysterious figure was a tremendous vote of confidence from your subconscious, affirming your inner strength and readiness to handle any transformation life or the afterlife could present. So how can you apply this ancient cartography of the soul to your own life? When you awake from a journey dream, resist the urge to simply recall the destination. Instead, focus on the quality of the travel itself. Were you confident and prepared, or anxious and lost? What was the condition of your vessel or your path? Use these details as a symbolic checklist for your waking life. A dream of a broken chariot might prompt you to check in on your physical health or the stability of your career plans. A vision of being lost in a familiar city could reflect confusion about your social role or daily routines. By viewing your journey dreams through this ancient, symbolic lens, you transform them from random fantasies into a dynamic, personal guidance system, offering timeless wisdom on how to navigate your path with greater confidence, purpose, and grace. Even the most troubling dream, the kind that jolts you awake in a cold sweat, was not a final verdict in the eyes of the ancient Egyptians. They possessed a remarkably sophisticated and proactive approach to these unsettling nightly visits, viewing them not as curses to be feared, but as coded warnings to be deciphered and disarmed. This system was built on a fundamental duality, the clear classification of dreams into positive Iri dreams and negative Weckham dreams, coupled with an unshakable belief that the latter's harmful potential could be actively mitigated. A Weckham dream was not a passive prediction of an unchangeable fate, it was a divine alert system, and the Egyptians had a full protocol for responding to its alarm. The first and most immediate line of defense was a powerful array of protective rituals and objects designed to purify the dream's energy and shield the dreamer from its influence. Upon waking from a distressing vision, an individual might immediately recite a specific protective spell or hymn. These incantations, often drawn from texts like the revered Book of the Dead, were not mere superstitious mutterings. They were considered active declarations of spiritual authority, a way to command any malevolent forces encountered in the dream to depart and to invoke the protection of a benevolent deity. A common practice was to spit lightly to one's left side, the direction associated with evil, a physical act symbolizing the expulsion of the dream's negative essence from the body. This spiritual defense was powerfully reinforced by the use of amulets. The most potent of these was the wedjat, or the Eye of Horus. This sacred symbol, representing wholeness, healing, and protection, was often placed in the sleeping area or worn to bed as a talisman to ward off chaotic spirits and ensure only truthful, beneficial dreams could penetrate the sleeper's consciousness. Small statues of the dwarf god Bes, with his fearsome lion-like face, were also popular guardians of the bedroom, his grotesque appearance serving as a spiritual scarecrow to frighten away any negative influences. For an individual particularly troubled by nightmares, a scribe might even inscribe a protective spell onto a piece of papyrus to be tucked beneath their headrest, creating a sacred, fortified boundary around their subconscious journey. Beyond these defensive measures, the Egyptians practiced a profound form of alchemy, the transformation of a bad dream's message into a positive action. This is where the professional dream interpreters, the scribes of the sacred, played their most crucial role. They acted as skilled translators, working to uncover the hidden, often constructive message buried within the frightening imagery. Their extensive dream books provided the key. Let's explore a few common Weckham dreams through their eyes. The terrifying sensation of falling, for instance, was rarely seen as a literal premonition. Instead, it was interpreted as a warning of a potential loss of control, status, or favor in one's waking life. It might indicate a risky venture was about to falter or that the dreamer was overreaching their authority. The interpreter's guidance would then focus on practical precaution, advising caution in business dealings, recommending a reassessment of one's ambitions, or suggesting prayers to a stabilizing deity like Ptah to restore order and foundation. Another nearly universal anxiety dream involves teeth crumbling or falling out. For the Egyptians, this was a potent symbol connected to anxiety about communication, powerlessness, and the fear of being unable to nourish or defend oneself. Teeth are essential for chewing food, the literal intake of nourishment, and for speech. A dream of losing them could therefore signal a deep fear of being unable to chew on a problem, to effectively communicate one's needs, or to digest a difficult situation. The interpreter's task was to help the dreamer identify the source of this powerlessness. Was there a difficult conversation they were avoiding? Were they feeling silenced in a social or professional setting? The dream became a catalyst for addressing these hidden anxieties, transforming a moment of fear into an opportunity for empowering self-advocacy. This ancient framework offers a powerful, timeless blueprint for dealing with our own modern nightmares. Instead of waking in fear and trying to forget, we can engage with the dream as the Egyptians did. Start by recording the dream's details as soon as you wake, giving the fear a name and a form. Then shift from a defensive posture to a curious one. Ask yourself not, why did I have this scary dream, but what is this dream trying to warn me about or prepare me for? See the falling dream not as a prediction of failure, but as your subconscious highlighting an area of your life where you feel insecure or unsupported. View the dream of lost teeth as a nudge to find your voice in a situation where you feel unheard. Finally, complete the circuit with a modern ritual, a moment of meditation to ground yourself, a conversation with a trusted friend to gain perspective, or a simple act of writing down one practical step you can take to address the underlying anxiety. By engaging with our nightmares as coded messages rather than monsters, we honor an ancient tradition of resilience, turning the darkest hours of the night into a workshop for personal growth and empowerment. In the tapestry of our dream world, few visions stir us as deeply as those involving love and connection. The ancient Egyptians understood this profound emotional terrain, approaching dreams of the heart not as fleeting fantasies, but as significant reflections of our deepest bonds and unmet needs. They viewed these dreams through a lens that balanced earthly desire with spiritual devotion, often seeing the hand of a deity like Hathor, the goddess of love, beauty, and joy, at work in the nocturnal stories of the soul. A dream wasn't just a passive reflection of daily life, it was an active communication about the state of your relationships, offering divine insight into romantic prospects, the harmony of your family, and the very strength of your capacity to give and receive love. The symbols woven into these dreams were interpreted with exquisite care, each one a potential key to understanding the emotional undercurrents of your waking life. Imagine dreaming of receiving a lush bouquet of lotus blossoms. In the heat of Egypt, the lotus was a powerful emblem of rebirth and purity, emerging pristine from muddy waters each day. To dream of being given this flower was interpreted as a beautiful omen of sincere affection and the potential for a relationship to enter a new, flourishing phase of growth. It was a sign that your emotional life was being nourished and that a bond, whether romantic or platonic, was blessed with genuine, renewing love. Conversely, a vision of a broken piece of jewelry, say, a snapped cord of gold beads or a cracked seal ring, carried a weighty message. Jewelry, especially pieces bearing protective amulets like the knot of Isis, symbolized connection and covenant. A broken piece in a dream was a serious warning of fractured trust, a looming separation, or deep-seated conflict that threatened the integrity of an important relationship. It was the subconscious, or perhaps a protective god, urging you to examine the bonds you relied upon and to address the cracks before they widened into a permanent break. The identity of the person appearing in your dream was just as critical as the symbols surrounding them. Seeing your established partner in a calm, happy context was a strong affirmation of stability and shared purpose, a sign that the foundational mat, or harmony, in your relationship was intact. But what of dreaming of a complete stranger offering you a gift or sharing a quiet moment? This was rarely interpreted as a prediction of a literal new acquaintance. Instead, the stranger often represented an unexplored aspect of yourself, perhaps a hidden capacity for intimacy, a new creative impulse, or a yearning for a different kind of connection that your waking self had not yet acknowledged. It was an invitation to be open to new experiences and to welcome the unfamiliar parts of your own heart. However, dreams of conflict, such as arguing with a loved one or witnessing a quarrel, were treated with particular gravity. The Egyptians saw these not as prophecies of inevitable fights, but as vital diagnostics of underlying tension. A heated dream argument with a sibling, for instance, might point to unresolved childhood dynamics playing out in your adult life, while a vision of your parents displeased could indicate internal pressure to live up to familial expectations that no longer serve you. These dreams were believed to bring hidden discord into the open, offering a chance to confront and heal these issues before they caused real-world damage. They provided a sacred space to safely work through frustrations, allowing you to approach a difficult conversation in waking life with greater clarity and compassion. Drawing on their core values of loyalty and cosmic balance, the Egyptians believed you could actively use these dreams to enhance your relationships. A positive dream was a gift to be honored. Dreaming of a joyful feast with your family might inspire you to organize a real gathering, thereby strengthening those bonds and manifesting the dream's harmony into your daily reality. A troubling dream was a call to action. A vision of a distant lover might prompt you to reach out and bridge an emotional gap, while a dream of being rejected could be a powerful nudge to examine where you might be neglecting your own needs or settling for less than you deserve in a relationship. Ultimately, these ancient interpreters taught that love dreams could help you recognize the hallmarks of true connection. Recurring dreams of protection, perhaps symbolized by the embracing wings of Isis, or consistent visions of mutual support, indicated a relationship that was divinely favored and built on a solid foundation. Conversely, persistent nightmares of betrayal or isolation served as crucial signs to establish necessary boundaries or to reconsider a partnership that was draining your spiritual energy. By listening to this ancient, symbolic language of the heart, you gain more than just interpretations. You receive a timeless guide for nurturing the connections that truly matter, ensuring your relationships are built on the same enduring principles of respect, balance, and devotion that echoed through the lives of the ancients. In the rhythm of daily life, our work and our crafts often become extensions of our very identity, the tangible ways we contribute to the world and leave our mark. It is no surprise, then, that these activities frequently find their way into our dreams, and the ancient Egyptians viewed these visions as powerful commentaries on our productivity, our legacy, and the divine favor bestowed upon our personal endeavors. For a civilization built on the fertile soil of the Nile's floodplain, dreaming of work was deeply entwined with the most fundamental act of all, farming. A vision of a field ripe with golden grain, of baskets overflowing with figs and dates, was one of the most auspicious signs imaginable. This was far more than a prediction of material wealth. It was a symbol of your efforts coming to glorious fruition, a confirmation that the seeds you had planted, whether literal or metaphorical, were blessed by the gods and would yield a harvest of success and security. This dream connected directly to Osiris, the god of agriculture, vegetation, and the afterlife, whose own death and rebirth were mirrored in the annual cycle of the Nile's inundation and the growth of crops. To see such abundance in your sleep was to receive his personal blessing, a promise that a period of stagnation was ending and a time of prosperity was dawning. Conversely, a dream of a failed harvest carried a heavy and urgent message. To witness fields choked with weeds, blighted by pestilence, or withering under a relentless sun was a stark warning from the subconscious, interpreted as a sign of wasted effort, misguided investments, or plans that were doomed to fail without a significant change in approach. It wasn't necessarily a prediction of absolute ruin, but rather a divine alert that your current strategy was not aligned with the natural order of things. Perhaps you were exhausting your resources without proper replenishment, pursuing a path that ignored crucial advice, or simply investing your energy in a project that lacked fertile ground to grow. The dream served as a crucial call to reassess, to seek guidance, and to perhaps pray to a deity like Osiris or the Nile god, happy for the wisdom to correct your course before your labors were entirely in vain. This symbolic language extends beautifully to all forms of creative and productive work, dreaming of mastering a craft, shaping a perfect pot on the wheel, weaving an intricate pattern into linen, or expertly inscribing hieroglyphs onto a smooth papyrus scroll, was a powerful affirmation of your skills and dedication. This kind of vision was intimately connected to Ptah, the great creator god of craftsmen, architects, and artists. Ptah was believed to have spoken the world into existence through the creative power of his heart and tongue, making him the ultimate patron of all who bring ideas into tangible form. To dream of excelling in a craft was to feel Ptah's favor, a sign that your innate talents were being recognized and that your work possessed integrity and would stand the test of time. It was an encouragement to take pride in your creations and to trust in your unique abilities. Of course, the dream world also holds up a mirror to our struggles. A modern equivalent might be dreaming of fumbling a presentation at work, your tools breaking at a critical moment, or being unable to solve a complex problem. The ancient interpreters would see this not as a prophecy of failure, but as the same kind of warning the farmer received. It highlights a feeling of being unprepared, a lack of necessary resources, or a skill gap that needs to be addressed. This is your subconscious, or perhaps a nudge from Ptah himself, urging you to adapt, to seek further training, or to collaborate with others who possess the knowledge you lack. Applying this ancient wisdom allows you to view your career and creative pursuits through a revelatory lens. A positive work dream is a potent motivator, a divine thumbs up to proceed with confidence and to pour your full passion into your projects. A challenging dream is not a reason for despair, but a valuable strategic tool. It invites you to conduct an honest audit of your waking efforts. Are you planting your seeds in the right soil? Are you honoring your craft with the dedication it deserves? Are you neglecting the need for rest and replenishment, risking burnout? By engaging with these dreams as the Egyptians did, as active, meaningful guidance, you transform them from random nocturnal snippets into a continuous dialogue with your deeper purpose, providing timeless insights for building a life of both prosperous outcomes and profound personal fulfillment. Perhaps one of the most famous examples of a dream altering the course of history comes from the reign of the pharaoh Thutmose IV. As a young prince, long before he ascended the throne, he was said to have been hunting near the Giza Plateau. Exhausted from the heat of the day, he took shade in the lee of the Great Sphinx, which was buried up to its neck in the desert sand. There, he fell into a deep sleep and received a powerful vision. The sun god Ra-Horakhti, embodied by the Sphinx itself, spoke to the young man. The deity promised Thutmose that if he cleared away the encroaching sand that imprisoned the colossal statue, he would be rewarded with the kingship of Upper and Lower Egypt. This was no vague suggestion, it was a divine contract. Upon waking, the prince immediately set crews to work, liberating the Sphinx from its sandy tomb. True to the god's word, Thutmose IV did indeed become pharaoh, and he commemorated this pivotal event by erecting the renowned dream stele between the paws of the Sphinx, etching the story in stone for eternity. This was not merely a royal anecdote, it was a powerful piece of political and religious propaganda, demonstrating that the king's right to rule was divinely ordained through the direct medium of a dream. But this belief in prophetic dreams was not confined to the elite in their palaces. Ordinary Egyptians also kept personal diaries and records of their significant dreams, often on broken pieces of pottery or limestone flakes called ostraka. A farmer might document a vivid dream of a particularly bountiful Nile flood, interpreting it as a sign to plant an extra large crop that season. A merchant traveling the desert routes might heed a frightening vision of a sandstorm or bandits, choosing to delay a caravan's departure and potentially saving lives and livelihoods. These dreams were viewed as practical, divine intelligence, offering a glimpse behind the curtain of fate and providing crucial guidance for navigating the uncertainties of daily life. The common thread in these accounts, from the pharaoh to the farmer, was the intense vividness and emotional charge of the experience. These were not the fuzzy, forgettable dreams of a normal night. They were cinematic, laden with powerful feeling, and carried a weight of significance that lingered upon waking, demanding attention and action. So, how can you discern if a dream of your own might carry a similar thread of insight, a whisper of something more? The ancient scribes would tell you to pay attention to those same qualities. A potentially meaningful vision often possesses an unusual clarity and sensory richness. The colors are brighter, the details are sharper, and the emotional resonance is profound, whether it's a feeling of immense peace or a sense of urgent foreboding. These dreams frequently feature powerful, archetypal symbols that we've explored: mighty bodies of water, encounters with animals, or interactions with figures of authority or wisdom. Most importantly, they stick with you. You find yourself turning them over in your mind throughout the day, unable to shake their imagery or their feeling. This persistent quality is often the first clue that your subconscious, or perhaps something beyond, is trying to communicate something of importance. The key to working with these visions, then and now, lies in a balanced and responsible approach to interpretation. The ancient Egyptians would never advocate for a life of anxiety, paralyzed by the fear of a bad omen. Instead, their philosophy was one of empowered preparedness. A troubling or warning dream was not a sentence, it was a strategic briefing. It was an opportunity to fortify your position, to check your plans for weaknesses, and to approach a situation with heightened awareness and caution. In a modern context, this means using such a dream as a catalyst for positive action rather than a source of dread. A vivid dream about a health concern could be your mind's way of urging you to finally schedule that doctor's appointment. A vision of a rocky path ahead in a relationship might inspire you to initiate a caring, honest conversation to clear the air. This balanced perspective allows you to honor the potential wisdom of these profound experiences while keeping your feet firmly planted in the rational world, using them as a unique tool for introspection, motivation, and ultimately, a more conscious and engaged life. Now that we've journeyed through the rich, symbolic world of Egyptian dream interpretation, you might be wondering how to bring this ancient art into your own life. The good news is, you don't need to be a temple priest or a royal scribe to start unlocking the wisdom of your dreams. The Egyptians believed this was a sacred practice accessible to everyone, and with a few simple steps, you can begin your own nightly dialogue with the divine. It all begins the moment you wake up. Before you even open your eyes, try to lie still for a moment and hold on to the fading images of your dream. The ancient scribes knew that the details are most vivid in that hazy space between sleep and full wakefulness. Keep a dedicated notebook and a pen right on your nightstand. This is your modern dream journal, your personal version of the sacred papyrus. Don't worry about writing a perfect narrative, just jot down the key symbols that stood out. Was there water, an animal, a specific color, or a powerful feeling? Most importantly, record the emotion that lingered with you upon waking. Were you terrified, exhilarated, or filled with a strange sense of peace? For the Egyptians, the emotional tone was often the most honest part of the message, the direct signal from your Ba or your subconscious. Once you have those symbols and feelings captured, the real detective work begins. This is where you become the scribe, consulting your own personal dream book. Instead of a dusty papyrus scroll, you might use a simple notebook organized by thematic sections: water, animals, deities, journeys, colors. When you dream of a snake, you can flip to your animal section and reflect on its dual meaning. Was it a symbol of feared chaos or a powerful sign of transformation and renewal? The context from your dream and the emotion you felt will guide you to the most relevant interpretation. If the snake was threatening, perhaps it's an echo of the god Set, warning you of a hidden conflict or a disruptive influence in your waking life. If it was calm or even helpful, it might be closer to the protective Urius cobra on a pharaoh's crown, symbolizing awakened wisdom and royal authority over your own life. To truly invite these meaningful visions, consider transforming your bedroom into a modern incubation chamber, a sacred space that signals to your subconscious that you are ready to listen. You don't need to recreate an entire temple, but small, intentional touches can make a profound difference. The color blue, sacred to the gods Ammon and Hathor, is associated with divine protection and celestial wisdom. Perhaps you could add a blue cloth to your bedside table or a lapis lazuli colored vase. The Ankh, the ancient symbol of life, is a powerful reminder of the eternal nature of your spirit and its journey. A small Ankh symbol on your wall or dresser can serve as a focal point for your intentions before sleep. You might even light a candle or some incense with scents like frankincense or myrrh before bed, not for any mystical property, but as a simple ritual to clear your mind and mark the transition from the noise of the day to the quiet receptivity of the night, much like the purification rites performed in the outer courts of an Egyptian temple. The final and most crucial step is what the Egyptians called turning wisdom into action. This isn't a passive exercise, it's an active engagement with your inner world. Don't just record your dreams and forget them. Set aside a few minutes each week to look for patterns. Are you repeatedly dreaming of being chased, of finding hidden rooms, of a specific person? These recurring themes are your subconscious's way of knocking louder on the door, insisting that a particular lesson be learned or a specific issue in your life be addressed. Then take one small step to integrate the interpretation. If you had a dream of nurturing a small plant, perhaps it's a sign to nurture a new idea or a neglected relationship. If you dreamed of a broken tool, it might be time to reassess your approach to a project or seek out new skills. By consistently reflecting and taking these small, actionable steps, you do exactly what the ancient Egyptians did. You transform the mysterious, often confusing language of the night into a practical, daily guide for living a more conscious, balanced, and purposeful life. As we bring this exploration to a close, it's worth reflecting on the extraordinary gift the ancient Egyptians have left us, not just in towering pyramids and golden artifacts, but in a complete philosophy for understanding the hidden language of the self. This isn't a dusty relic to be studied behind museum glass. It is a vibrant, living system that invites you to become an active participant in your own inner world. Every time you recall a dream, you are engaging in the same sacred practice that a scribe in Deir el-Medina would have recognized, using symbols as your map to navigate the vast and mysterious landscape of your subconscious. The water you dream of flows from the same symbolic Nile, the animals that appear are messengers from the same divine realm, and the journeys you undertake are echoes of the soul's eternal quest for meaning that the Egyptians held so dear. Think of this knowledge as a new lens through which to view your nightly adventures. Where you might have once seen a confusing jumble of images, you can now begin to discern patterns, recognize omens, and appreciate the profound guidance being offered. That unsettling dream of being chased is no longer just an anxiety to shake off with your morning coffee. It becomes a crucial alert from your deeper mind, pointing to a situation or emotion you've been avoiding in your waking life. A vivid vision of a radiant deity like Isis or Thoth transforms from a strange fantasy into a potential moment of divine connection, a burst of protective energy or creative inspiration sent to guide you. This practice empowers you to move from being a passive observer of your dreams to an attentive interpreter, actively collaborating with your subconscious to uncover truths about your health, your relationships, and your path. The most beautiful aspect of this ancient art is that it is inherently personal and adaptive. Your dream journal becomes your own unique dream book, a living document where you record not just the symbols, but the specific emotional resonance they hold for you. Perhaps the scarab beetle, a universal symbol of transformation and luck, appears to you on the eve of a major life decision, filling you with a sense of confidence and possibility. Maybe the image of a still, dark pool of water doesn't feel like a warning of stagnation, but rather a comforting invitation to rest and introspect. Your personal associations and life context are the final, crucial key to unlocking the full meaning, making you the ultimate scribe of your own sacred texts. We are so eager to hear how these ancient symbols begin to speak to you. When you dream of the mighty Nile, does it reflect a time of emotional abundance or a warning of coming overwhelm? Has a protective cat or a wise ibis visited your sleep with a message? Please share your stories and discoveries in the comments below. Your experiences create a modern community of dreamers, continuing a conversation that began thousands of years ago along the banks of the river. If this journey into the mysteries of the night has captivated you, be sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and tap the bell icon so you won't miss our next exploration into the hidden wisdom of the ancient world. Thank you for venturing into the dreamscape with us. May your nights be filled with profound visions and your days with the clarity to understand them. Sweet dreams, and may your ba always find its way home.